Ravens fans did not see this coming. Just days after Zay Flowers signed the biggest contract extension in Ravens history, the star receiver went down colliding with Jalen Hawkins. Flowers immediately went to the ground and trainers were checking his left leg. He did not return to practice, but eventually he did walk off the field on his own power. And thankfully, the earliest bit of news that we have received are more encouraging than the scene initially looked when the news had first dropped. As this, Jesse Minter has labeled Zay Flowers day-to-day with a quad contusion, giving Baltimore some reason to be optimistic while the team continues to evaluate him throughout the rest of the season. And while Baltimore is waiting to see more information on the training camp injury of Zay Flowers, Baltimore went out, made a roster move, and signed Jamone Johnson, a linebacker who is actually a Maryland native and played for St. Francis Academy, while waiving undrafted rookie cornerback Matthew McDoom to make room in the process. So let's break down what exactly happened to Zay Flowers in practice, the latest on his injury, the unfortunate timing coming right after this massive extension that Zay just signed, and what this means for Jamone Johnson signing in Baltimore. But before we get into today's video, you guys are going to want to make sure to subscribe to Ravens Digest. It is completely free, no cost at all, and 70% of you guys are not subscribed. We are providing daily Baltimore Ravens videos, updates, rumors, and all things Baltimore Ravens, so you guys are not going to want to miss out on the content we are providing on a daily basis. But let's start with the biggest story of Zay Flowers going down. Let's start. Zay Flowers got banged up during Saturday's practice, and the injury happened during 7-on-7s. And Flowers was running across the middle when Lamar threw the ball his way, and him and Jalen Hawkins came together, and the two appeared to bang legs on the play. Flowers immediately went down, and you could tell right away that he was in some serious pain. Trainers came over, checked him out, checked out his left leg, and according to the Baltimore Sun, it initially appeared that he was looking at his left knee specifically. Even with this, GM DeCosta came and checked up on him. Derrick Henry came and walked over to check up on him. And eventually, Zay Flowers was able to get back on his feet. And the good news is he didn't need a cart for this injury. He was able to walk off the field on his own power. But he was clearly limping as he made his way back to the facility, and he did not return to practice for the rest of the day. So obviously, when you see an injury such as this, the first question is going to be, how serious is it, especially for Zay Flowers? And thankfully, the update that we got from Jesse Minter gives us a little bit of hope and a reason to breathe, because the latest said that he had suffered a left quadricep contusion after banging legs, and this is obviously encouraging compared to what it could have been when Zay Flowers first went down. But again, this is still an early assessment. Flowers will continue to be evaluated before Baltimore knows how serious the injury is and how much time he would miss. But then, not even a little bit after, Jesse Minter came out in his press conference and said that Zay Flowers will be day-to-day. And right now, this is a very important update because it is not season-ending. It is not a long-term injury. It is just a player who will need to be monitored on a day-to-day basis and evaluated over the next couple of days. And honestly, Baltimore has no reason to rush Zay Flowers, especially when you look at the timing of the contract that Zay Flowers just signed over the past couple of weeks. Zay Flowers literally just signed the biggest contract extension for a wideout in Ravens history. 4 years, $140 million, 108 of that being guaranteed. And Baltimore Ravens fans were very excited about this, as it made Flowers one of the highest paid receivers in the entire NFL. And then just days later, boom, he goes down in training camp with this injury, and this is the reality of football. You finally get that contract you've been hoping and searching for, and then boom, one awkward play can create some concern in terms of an injury perspective. But the good news that comes with this right now is that it is not nothing that is catastrophic. Zay Flowers should be good to go very, very soon, hopefully. And he walked off the field. He didn't need assistance. And the day-to-day designation is very encouraging for Zay Flowers. We also have a lot of time. The training camp scene just started. Preseason hasn't even started. There's absolutely no reason for us to be rushing Zay Flowers back on the field, especially before he is ready. And the Baltimore Ravens just invested $140 million with him. They're going to be extremely cautious, as we should be. And while the Baltimore Ravens are figuring out how much time Zay Flowers will miss, they just made a roster move that makes sense and can create some picture depth within that linebacker room, as the Baltimore Ravens announced that they have signed linebacker Jamone Johnson, and this is a pretty cool signing as he has a connection to the city. Johnson is a Maryland native who attended St. Francis Academy in Baltimore, and now he is getting the opportunity to come back home and compete for a spot within the Baltimore Ravens. And he spent 2025 as a Green Bay Packer, only played in 2 games and made 1 start, but he made 25 special team snaps and 67 snaps on defense. So while he doesn't have a ton of NFL experience, he does have some regular season experience. But he will now get this opportunity with the Baltimore Ravens to fight for a depth position in that linebacker room. But before getting into the NFL, it is actually a really cool story about Jamone Johnson, as he spent 3 years at the University of Georgia and played as a true freshman. And if you know Kirby Smart, he doesn't just play any true freshman, so he was very, very talented. And while being at Georgia, he played and competed in Georgia's back-to-back national championships in 2021 and in 2022. And he was also teammates with Baltimore Raven Malachi Starks. But he went and drafted in 2025 before signing with the Packers and then being on their practice squad for a little bit. But now he's in Maryland with the opportunity to fight for another NFL roster spot. And while I wouldn't look at this signing of being a starting caliber depth spot for the Baltimore Ravens, I think it could still be about competition in terms of the linebacker room and the linebacker position. Because Baltimore has had some injuries and some bodies missing from this linebacker room, Teddy Buchanan is still on the inactive list and working back from that knee injury in 2025. Carl Jones didn't practice on Saturday, so adding another linebacker of this caliber is great, especially to evaluate before the preseason begins. And he can compete for these defensive snaps, he can contribute on special teams, and most importantly, Baltimore has another option at the position in terms of depth. And this is the most valuable thing, especially when we're getting closer to the regular season and the regular season slowly approaching, with the preseason only being a week or 2 away. But when you have a cut and a sign of this nature, there are cuts that need to be made. And to make room for Johnson, the Ravens had to waive undrafted rookie cornerback Matthew McDoom. And Matthew McDoom played 3 college seasons at Coastal before transferring to Cincy. And after those 4 seasons, he had 4 interceptions and 26 pass deflections. But Baltimore's secondary is extremely competitive. As we know, Malachi Starks is there, Kyle Hamilton is there. It is very hard to fight for these spots, especially even with the injury of Zay Flowers. Jalen Hawkins is a newer addition to that safety room. So one many roster spots, it's very, very hard. There is only so many spots that Baltimore Ravens have available, especially in the secondary department. And one player can get signed, another can get waived, somebody can get hurt, another player can get an opportunity. And unfortunately, McDoom was the player that was caught in the process of needing to be cut to make room for Jamon Johnson. But Saturday's practice also saw a bunch of players not practicing, as they were back to that 3 straight days in full pads. They finally returned back to shells, and 6 players were not practicing, including Calais Campbell, Dalton Wade, Carl Jones, Travis Jones, and as we know, Teddy Buchanan. Most of these players are on the inactive list currently, except Calais Campbell. And as the preseason is starting to get closer, this depth really matters, especially, and it is very important going into the preseason. And Jamone Johnson is a player who can finally get this opportunity going into this upcoming season to fight for a spot in the preseason and in the early bit of training camp. But the biggest story, as we talked about in the day, is Zay Flowers and Zay Flowers' injury. Zay Flowers, what will happen next? Right now, the early indication is a quad contusion. Mentor said it was day-to-day, so it's not a major concern, and these are very encouraging signs. But you need to consider that Zay Flowers just signed that 4-year, $140 million extension, and it is very important. The Baltimore Ravens don't need him to prove anything in training camp. We know what Zay Flowers brings to our wide receiver room. They paid him, they made the decision. Now the priority is getting him healthy and ready for the regular season. And if this means that Zay Flowers is missing the rest of training camp or a few practices, so be it. We need to give him that time to rest. And if he needs that extra time, give him that extra time. There is no reason to take a risk in August. In September, and the regular season is approaching very, very soon. So the Baltimore Ravens need to be very cautious when it comes to Zay Flowers. So Saturday definitely gave Ravens fans a little bit of everything. You have Zay Flowers just days away from signing that massive extension, leaving practice with an injury. Thankfully, we are hoping that it is an injury that he will work back from in the next couple of days, 2 weeks. And then Baltimore brought in Jamon Johnson, a Maryland native, St. Francis Academy product, to that depth spot in the linebacker room with the injuries we have faced. And lastly, to make room for him, the Baltimore Ravens had waived undrafted rookie cornerback Matthew McDoom. So all eyes are really on Zay Flowers over the next couple of days. Hopefully it ends up being nothing more than a minor setback. But what do you guys think about Zay Flowers' injury and Jamone Johnson signing? Do you think that Zay Flowers should be shut down for the rest of training camp just to be safe? I would definitely say so, just to make sure that he can work back from this injury and train to come back and be a piece for the Baltimore Ravens throughout the regular season. What do you think about Jamone Johnson's chances to make the regular season roster and that 53-man? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what you guys are thinking. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to Ravens Digest. It is completely free. We are providing daily Ravens rumors, updates. You guys are not going to want to miss out on any update throughout preseason and the regular season. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And until then, Ravens flock always.